Hey there guys, it's Obsidian Chill. Got another video for today, and this is a continuation of my Power Sets in 2022 mini-series. These videos are designed just to kind of show rotational updates, artifacts, allies updates, just everything shown at max CR and stats. Not intended to be like a full-blown guide duration, that's why I'm not going to be covering some of the nuances, just basically the rotations for single target, AoE, ranged if it's applicable, just for might. Like I said before, there aren't, or in the previous video, there aren't enough changes to precision to warrant those changes, because it's just, unless you're a few outlier power sets, it's a cookie cutter rotation for all of perk powers. So without further ado, you can check out the timestamps in the description, as well as the pinned comment in the video, to take you to the relevant section that you're looking for. If not, enjoy the video, and we'll see you in the next power set. Okay, to touch on quantum AoE rotations, just to note a few things for gear. If you're using the foot mod, dashing combos, make sure you have that for Whirling Dervish. Everything else, spec, I mean, obviously might augments, might spec. I mean, the spec hasn't changed with DPS in general for multiple years, so don't worry about that. Artifact wise, you do have some different combinations. Transformation Strategist card will still be the go-to. For the third artifact, that's where basically you get some options. I mean, technically, if you followed my Grim vs. Quizlet video, there are some power set exceptions where Grim is still actually doing well because of the PI. Quantum is one of those because you have Lift, which I'll show, and then for example, same examples like Burning PI for munitions for the chain gun, double damage. So you can still run Grim if you have it, but since I've been telling everyone to switch to Quizlet, you might not have that anymore, which is perfectly fine, acceptable. Quizlet's rotation is still nice because of the Mega Blast granting the 1% supercharge, because we're using Oblivion. It's harder or longer to earn that supercharge because it's 100%, but it's still worthwhile because it's one of the best AoE supercharges in the game. The only thing to note is for Refractor Beam, because it's a 10,000 supercharge cost, is not the AoE beam. So just make sure when you use Oblivion that you're targeted on, I mean, like an ad with full health or something like that, or sub boss or whatever you're going to use it for. Just make sure you're not aiming it at like an ad that has no health for your target, because then you'll waste the Refractor Beam damage. You also have the choice to run Eye of the Gemini. I mean, if you don't want artifact swap, then you could just run these three artifacts and then basically just earn your supercharge a little bit slower, but still have the Eye of the Gemini for Oblivion. I mean, you can also, if you're a fan of artifact swapping, you can keep Amulet in, so Transformation Strategist and Amulet card. This will be heavy damage for the healers because of the multiple 300 power costs. 300 power costs of Cure Wave, 200, 200, 200. So it is on the slight power intensive side for Amulet, but if your healer can do it, then that's great, because you don't need the PI in this rotation. Then you can swap in Fluid or Eye of the Gemini, whatever you want to do. So you do have some options available to you, depending on A, how much you want to invest in it, and B, what artifacts you already have. In terms of allies, the standard setup for DPS, if you want the, right now, because Aquaman is bugged and because Quantum is using 100% supercharge for AoE, there's really no point of having the Aquaman passive, because even if you have mid-input Cyborg as your DPS, you're not earning a supercharge really enough to warrant the cooldown reduction. So you can go with the standard Superman setup if you want for the highest AoE damage. You're still going to want the Luck of the Draw, Batman Laughs, and then Cyborg passive for a little bit extra power regen. If you don't need the power regen, you can swap Cyborg to DPS and put Aquaman on your passive, depending on what allies you have and what you want to do. So touching on the loadout itself, we have Dervish starting. Singularity sets up the PI, because like I said, I'll show it here as an example. So if we set up, just do Lift normally, it's just a single target power. But if we have, I'll wait for the dot ticks for Singularity to disappear, just so you have that. So now we have the PI active. Now if I do a Lift, as you can see, it sets up the multiple dot ticks. So Lift is one of those very strong power interactions that we have with DPS abilities. Just like Munitions Chain Gun, there's a few other examples as well. But if you're going to use Lift, then you need the PI, and then it also makes it a much nicer combination with Strategist card, because then we have the multiple ticks of Dervish and the multiple ticks of Lift, and then and I mean, technically Singularity is multiple hits, but I mean, Singularity unfortunately is a weak power. We just have to have it for the PI, and then we have a Cure Wave, which is a Quantum's best mid-range ability. And then you have Robot Sidekick and Oblivion. If I was in like a damage, like a gem span group, I would drop Quizlet and then basically just drop, even robust sidekick too, because I mean, if you're in a gem spam group, people are going to be continually stacking interactions. At that point, I would run like Nia Venom Boost and Speed Drain, because then you can constantly proc the Gemini damage and just a 5,000 with Nia Venom Boost. But that just depends on the type of group you're in. If you're in a pub group, then that may not be beneficial, and you may stick with basically Oblivion in that case. So rotation is just going to be left to right, and let's show you an example now. Okay, so you get the idea there. Where did we start? $177K, $189K. Obviously, you're not going to have as many strategy cards proc sticking in that 10-second time. And then once the rotation kind of gets going, 2.3 mil, 2.2, 2 mil. And then obviously the hit count's dropped a little bit, as you can see here. So basically, once you get a proper amount of strategy card ticks, you'll jump up for the 185's range or average into the 200. So basically any time over 200 hits during that parse, then each one's over. It doesn't matter if it's 39%, 46%, 51%. You're all over 2 mil. Just need that 200 hit counts with the proper strategy card ticks on the 5 targets. So in terms of where that rotation stands, I mean, to be honest, I haven't DPS with or haven't parsed with multiple power sets in a while. It's at the max CR. So I'm not sure where the 2.3 million stands. I mean, obviously it's going to be a little bit different than Prec, obviously, in terms of Brawling Shukram Storm AoE rotations. But as this series kind of continues, you'll get an idea of where the parsers kind of stand amongst each other, because it's going to be tested at like almost the exact same stats, which is the advantage, because my guide series will kind of spread out over different episodes. So then you get different damage in terms of different aspects. But here, I mean, it's all going to be the same skill points, the same. I mean, the artifacts are going to change slightly, but all the stats and CR and gear is going to be the exact same for this series. Okay, so for Quantum Single Target, there's basically one artifact and one ally change. You're going to be running Heat Vision, so you have to swap in Soul Amplifier. And then for allies, it's going to be House of Legends bot, or technically, if you're watching this video in the future, you can also use Crypto. Crypto is a similar single target damage to House of Legends bot. House of Legends bot technically is a little bit stronger, but Crypto, it's if you don't want to use the bot or have possible targeting issues, then there's always Crypto. So in terms of loadout, actually, there should be a little public service announcement that I include here for strategy card. Now, if you watch, say, for example, Prec DPS and their tax swapping strategy card, you can't do that as might. So for example here, strategy card in the bottom, you have regular Heat Vision. So in terms of you kind of understand how long it's going to last, same thing with like the finisher. Get an idea for that duration. Let me just cancel Robust Sidekick here. But if I tried that again, sorry, I missed my place there. Do over. Now we try that again, swapping strategy card. It's going to cancel the animation, same thing. So even if you swap it back, so if I do the finisher, it just cancels the finisher, because the animation swap of a strategy card is going to cancel the animation. correct DPS, it doesn't matter because you're doing a flurry shot, but might DPS, we have a channel power. The swapping the strategist card, the animation. So if I put strategist card on you, you kind of see my hand collapse like that. So I'll do it a little bit faster. Now if I swap it back on, you see that hand clap animation? That's what cancels your channels. So that's why, and obviously you can't swap heat vision because it's going to be the same thing. It's going to keep messing up. So that's why pretty much the only time you can swap artifact-wise is going to be transformation card. If you're going to swap in for Gemini, if you're going to swap in for whatever, if you want to use Amulet instead of Strategy card, for example, or Dead King, Philosopher's Stone, whatever kind of swap you're going to do, just don't do on Strategy card, because the whole point of Might channels is to give us time to swap artifacts. That's why, Fire, for example, like a Fire Might is so good for multiple swaps, is because of all those channels. So same thing, Quantum technically has 2 channels, so it gives you plenty of time to swap in artifacts if you have to. Just don't do it on strategy card. So in terms of the Loadout as well, I like this one because it gives lots of flexibility. Quantum single target is really just 3 powers. That's why it's pure single target, because there's not a lot of AoE. If there's going to be AoE, then you'd have to have something set up in PI for lift, or you'd have to use like a distortion wave. If there's a lot of AoE, you can always swap that in at the end and say take off Oblivion, put Neo Venom boost, and then basically have Loadout like this if there was some AoE, because then you got the pure single target and then distortion wave, which would be a range AoE at the end. That's also a possibility, but that's why it gives so much flexibility. You can keep Neo Venom, if it's not like a Genesis Band group, you can keep Neo Venom boost. Then you could run like Quantum Tunneling if you wanted to, just for survivability, or the actual shield, Time Bubble, wherever it is here, Time Bubble. It gives you so much flexibility because really, you'll see in the rotation, it's only 3 powers. So you've got 3 extra loadout slots to kind of work around either sidekick, shield, multiple supercharges for gem spam, whatever you want to do. It gives you that complete flexibility. You could run Neo Venom boost and speed drain if it's going to be a situation that a bloom as burst, or if you want to keep Neo Venom and Oblivion, because technically you can pull that off if you've got gem sand and like a scrap swap. You can pull off that Neo Venom boost into Oblivion. A little bit trickier, but you can pull it off. So that's why I like this loadout. It gives complete flexibility because you're only using 3 abilities for your actual damage. So let's touch on the actual rotation here. Okay, same idea, you get the idea. At that point I was reaching finisher range anyway, so it's not as realistic to keep parsing like that because the finisher would be always hitting extra damage. But still, where did I hit it up here? Yeah, so 98 parse right at the start, so you're almost sitting around 1 million, 900k. That one was uncharacteristically low. That was low crit chance and low hit count, so not entirely sure what happened on that parse, but that's an outlier. And then million, 95. So it's once Quantum single target, I wouldn't put up, near the top echelon of Might single target, but I mean, you can still get away with it. And then because of the flexibility with the 3 powers, I mean, you can run multiple supercharges for Gemini swaps. You can run shield, whatever. It's same situation as Light. Well, obviously Light Might single target is a lot better, but in terms of the same concept of using only a few abilities, gives you that extra flexibility where other Might powers have to use like a static 5 or 6 loadout rotation for their single target. But this gives you an idea. And then, like I said, if you wanted to swap in more AoE, same thing. And then you just basically drop, not drop Sidekick, but drop the extra supercharge and then run Distortion Wave. And then just use that at the end of the rotation. And then that'll take care of your AoE. So if it's like a boss fight with some ads that come out, then instead of losing damage, because this is pure single target besides the explosion damage on heat vision, then at least you can add in Distortion Wave for some extra damage. And that's why you have Oblivion as well to take care of the ads in that situation well. So same thing when if you were sticking to this in terms of like a shield one, then whenever the ads come out, then you can pop Oblivion, take care of that, and then have that for the rest of the single target damage. For Quantum range, it's not necessarily a rotation I would ever use because it's not required. If you don't want to be melee with Dervish, you can always swap out Dervish for like Sonic Cry and get similar results for then more of a mid-range build. But if you are looking for max range, ally-wise is going to be the same as melee Superman because they're all going to blink towards the target anyway, so it doesn't matter if you're long range with an ally. Superman, this is a bit more power intensive rotation, so I would have Cyborg in for the passive, and then obviously the card procs with Batman Who Laughs. Artifact wise, same thing as melee, Transformation, Strategist, and Quizlet, but you can always swap in technically Amulet if your healer can support it, swap in Gemini if you want to use different or when you use Oblivion. Loadout wise is going to be Time Shift, Distortion Wave, Warp Barrage, and then Freezing Breath, and then you cancel after 2 ticks. And then Robot Sidekick and Oblivion. You can technically get away with it's slightly less damage, but you can get away with just a Time Shift, Distortion Wave, Warp Barrage rotation, just with a 3-second cooldown. So that means you could drop Freezing Breath for another supercharge or shield or whatever you wanted to in terms of rotation, but you will get more damage using these 4 just with the Freezing Breath ticks. So let's jump into the rotation. So you get a quick idea of the rotation there. I mean, it is a bit more power intensive for the sparring targets than I would have liked. 1.3 with no strategy card ticks, and then you start to get an extra 20 ticks with a strategy card, 1.4, 1.6. Nothing to write home about. I mean, obviously, if you even wanted to be hybrid and then use like Might single target, Might AoE or for Quantum, and then switch to Prec for Brawling Shuriken Storm for Quantum. I mean, Brawling Shuriken Storm just itself is going to be more damage than most range Might rotations, just how it works out. But like I said before, there's not too many cases where you're going to need ranged. You're easily being able to cover Might melee and Might even mid-range just with like Sonic Cry or Distortion Wave instead of Dervish.